This morning we're going to discuss on GitHub how to ignore files starting with a letter, or how to ignore files starting with multiple letters, or how to ignore directories. But let's start with the letter first. So if I go to GitHub and I look under PowerShell, and I'm going to use PowerShell repository as an example, you'll notice I have YouTube Google plus API.txt. And you'll notice that in this case I don't want to upload that because this .txt file has obviously important information. Okay, so I can go to my gitignore file and I can place, to ignore a file starting with Y, I would do Y star, and because this file ends in text, I'm going to do .txt. Okay. Actually, I'm just going to demonstrate Y star first because it will do the same thing, because it's going to ignore everything starting with Y. And notice, YouTube plus API, it goes away completely. All right, because I don't want to ignore everything with Y. In this case, I only want to ignore that one file. I'm going to do y.txt. Of course, it's going to look dissimilar because I'm not uploading another Y file. But again, in this case, I want to only ignore that one with YouTube. So I'm going to do YouTube, and I'll do star. I'll go back in and do the full thing. But what this does basically is this will eliminate. I can actually check. Actually, I have a better idea. This will actually eliminate the entire YouTube Google plus API. Okay, there we go. I forgot where my capital letters were. Okay, and that should eliminate that. Okay, so that's gone. Now I'm going to go to PowerShell really fast, and I'm going to save this. I'll delete this later on, but I'm going to save this under PowerShell, and let's do environments, and I'm going to say new. Okay, and so I've added a new file under the folder environments. Well, let's suppose, and again, going back to just the previous example, if you want to ignore anything that has YouTube in it, you would just do YouTube star. Well, now we want to ignore the entire folder environments. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our gitignore file, and let's say we're going to ignore environments. I think it's this, and then star. And it's gone. So now it ignores that entire folder. The reason why this is super handy is, let's suppose you work at a company and they share a lot of their source code, but certain, like let's say upper level data science or data analysis, they don't want to share. Well, you could put in a folder data science, let's suppose, or data analysis. You could say nothing in that directory we're going to share publicly. And so what that does is it'll ignore everything in that directory. So this is super useful depending on your environment. So that's one of the ways in which you can ignore. So if you're looking to ignore a specific file, file letter, I should say, it's going to be the letter. Let's say it's L. That's going to be the star, then the extension. If it's everything starting with the letter, it's going to be the letter star. That'll ignore everything regardless of the file extension. If you want to ignore a certain word, starting with a certain word like YouTube, then you'll do YouTube star. If you only want to ignore a certain file extension, it'll be dot whatever the file extension is. If it's everything, then YouTube star. And then of course, if you want to ignore a folder, it's going to be the folder / star. If you want to only ignore certain files in that folder with a certain extension, let's say text, then it would be star.txt, star. Whatever the other extension is. So that's kind of how to ignore specific files starting with letters, specific files starting with a word, or of course an entire folder.